We have Lori in the recording.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been seconded.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Citizen in, this is for anybody that wants to say anything related to something not on the. Speak. Oh, we do. Actually about the agenda. Okay, right, we'll get to it in just. New business, item 5.1, docket SB 1-25. Brian Tedderson has requested approval. Plat SB 1-25, subdivide 1.59 acres. The site is an unaddressed property abutting the terminus of both southeast city, described as Columbia map 33120400. Site is east of Southeast Maple, Southeast Cypress Court. I'm calling this meeting to order. Consider an application for subdivision plat approval. Procedure for this meeting follows strict form required by state law. Questions and statements made by the commissioners and city staff must address the criteria applies to the decision as described in the staff report. Or to the criteria the commissioner that the commissioner believes to apply to the decision. Testimony that offer here to submit described in the public for this application. City staff and the commission will have an opportunity to speak. Responses to those comments. I didn't realize it's a limited land use position. Can you frame your comment not about this as a general comment? Safety. Okay, it's a safety. Before you get started, I just want to make sure if you want to do that, then let's go back to citizen input. And you can kind of make a comment that way. I think you need to fill out a form afterwards, but if you want to, I can make a comment. Generally, not about this specific application.
About safety of the project as it goes.
It's a general comment, not about this specific project. Can't take testimony directly on that.
Okay,
And if you would say your name and what city you're from for the moment.
my name's Wayne Beck. I live in town here. I'm at 52256 6th Court. I have just a safety issue about the general project. I look at it, if you come in on off of 6th, you're going to have trucks coming in. They're going to probably have to back in from the dead end. So are the trucks going to have a spotter?
Chair, I would advise that this is getting really close to the application.
Yeah.
It is, but it's about safety. It's, I think I should be able to be heard about safety issues.
I don't disagree with that,
Okay,
but there are specific rules that we need to be very specific about.
okay,
We can't take comments on this project.
okay. Then I don't have anything else to say.
May I suggest, I think they could start at what you were saying. You could speak about a concern for construction being done at the end of a dead end street.
Oh, is my mic not working? Okay.
Well, the comment is, you would not want it on a dead end street.
Yeah.
Because you have limited access in and out.
Mhm.
It's a very skinny road. There's other roads that are larger and have turnarounds on a side street. that are much safer in larger streets.
Mhm.
If you put larger trucks on this smaller streets,
Mhm.
you're gonna have very limited access in, especially for the people living in the back of this dead end or so.
Okay,
The other options that I see have turnarounds. It seems to have wider streets. It
Mhm.
would be much easier to bring in larger trucks there.
Okay.
It's just safety for me. That's it.
okay, great.
All right.
Thank you for your comment, and we'll see if that might happen to be just by happenstance brought up later during the actual land use decision.
Scott, can you welcome Commissioner Allen?
Welcome, Commissioner. Thank you, NJ. All right. Now I'm going to go back to opening the hearing. So I'm going to start from the beginning. I am calling this meeting to order to consider an application for subdivision preliminary plat approval. The procedure for this meeting will follow a strict format as required by state law. Questions and comments made by the commissioners and city staff must address the criteria that apply to the decision as described in the staff report, or to the criteria the commissioner believes to apply to the decision. Limited land use decisions do not permit verbal public testimony, but do offer a period to submit written comment as described in the public noticing for this application. Only city staff and the planning commission will have an opportunity to speak. The applicant's submitted materials, any written comments, and any responses to those comments are contained within the record. Does any planning commissioner wish to declare any ex parte context, conflicts of interest, or appearance of bias regarding this matter?
I just wanted to say, I do know one of the folks who have made comments,
Okay.
but that's certainly not going to impact, the rest of what we're dealing with. here.
Okay,
So
great.
I just wanted to make that.
That's exactly how we do it. Declare, declare, declare.
Okay, thanks.
Does anybody at this meeting wish to challenge any commissioner's impartiality or legal capacity to participate in this matter? Seeing none. Okay. Seeing none, the order of the meeting will be the staff report, commissioner questions of staff, then consideration of the matter by the commission. The decision of the planning commission may be appealed to the city council within 14 days of the decision. And with that, we will move on to staff report.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you all for being here tonight and for looking over the materials. Before we begin, I want to let you know, as you have in your packet, we did receive 3 public comments after the staff report was published on the 15th. This is perfectly fine, as the notice says that folks have until the 21st at 5 p.m. in order to submit public comment. It's always the day before the Planning Commission makes their decision. You have in front of you an abridged version, and Commissioner Allers, you should have yours. I sent an email if you want to follow along and get the new comments, but you have an abridged version of the staff report and the comments that were made as exhibits, and also the applicant's responses to those comments. And then also in there is the one condition of approval that was added to the staff report as a result of a public comment and then a concession by the applicant. I will begin by going over the subject site information of the staff report and then the observations. When I'm doing that, I would encourage you to open up your packet and look through the site plan that's in there. There's a lot of history and moving parts with this particular application, and I think it'd be helpful to have a visual reference as we talk through some of this material. I'll then list the approval criteria for the proposed development and let you know which pages correspond with the findings. And then lastly, I will let you know staff's recommendation and our recommended conditions of approval. After that, we'll take some time for questions. So beginning with subject site. The subject site is 1.59 acres and currently consists of grass and some trees. There's also a, well, not anymore, but there was a 1 foot wide reserve strip owned by the city of Scappoose between the western property line of the subject site and the southeast Maple Street right-of-way. The city has since dedicated this as right-of-way per Columbia County Instrument Number 2026-00235. The subject site is surrounded by single-family homes to the north, south, and west, as well as a large residential property with a house and several outbuildings to the east. The subject site abuts the terminus of Southeast Maple Street and single-family homes to its west and Southeast Sixth Court to its south. The subject site and the parcels to the south are zoned moderate density residential, which is R4, and are designated as suburban residential on the comprehensive plan map. Properties to the west are zoned low density residential or R1 with a comprehensive plan designation of general residential. The properties to the north and east are not in city limits. They're in the urban growth boundary, and they're zoned by Columbia County as single family residential or R10. And they are designated on our comprehensive plan map as suburban residential since they are in the city's urban growth boundary. The site is not located within the floodplain, and there are no wetlands, slope hazards, or water courses on or near the site. And lastly, this is getting into some history. The site was previously approved for annexation, zone change, and a subdivision / cottage housing development, which we're going to call throughout this staff report the Maple Street Cottages. The proposal that's here tonight is the Maple Street subdivision. So that's how we'll call that. That's local file number annexation 1-19, zone change 1-19, and subdivision 1-19. This was approved by the City Council on June 1st, 2020. The subdivision was never platted and the approval expired. However, the annexation to bring this property into city limits and then also the zone change to zone R4 are still in effect, even though the subdivision wasn't platted. Requested approval. The applicant is requesting approval of a preliminary subdivision plat to subdivide 1.59 acres of land into 14 lots to support townhouses. The lots range in size from 2,931 square feet to 4,116 square feet. In addition to the division of lots, the subdivision would also extend Maple Street right-of-way eastward and extend the Sixth Court right-of-way northward. The two streets are proposed to extend until they connect. Right-of-way and public improvements. The property abuts the eastern terminus of Maple Street and the northern terminus of Sixth Court. The applicable sections of both streets are classified by our transportation system plan as local streets, which require 54 feet of right-of-way comprised of 32 feet of vehicular travelway and parking, 2 5.5-foot planter strips, 2 5-foot sidewalks, and 2 6-inch utility areas. Maple Street has a right-of-way width, and by the way, I'm talking about the existing portion of Maple Street, not necessarily what's on their site. The existing portion of Maple Street currently has a right-of-way width of 60 feet and a paved width of 43.8 feet, but does not have sidewalks. The applicant is proposing to extend Maple Street eastward into their site, maintaining a 60-foot right-of-way and downsizing to a 36-foot paved section, and to plant street trees in the 5-foot planter strip and install 6-foot sidewalks. The planter strip is substandard as proposed by 1/2 foot. However, the section of Maple Street will likely be classified as a collector, which requires the 36 feet of paved street and 6-foot sidewalks. And the street trees that the applicant is proposing can fit within a 4-foot wide planter. So given that some concession had to be made here, a 5-foot planter is acceptable to accommodate this. Southeast Sixth Court has a right-of-way width of 54 feet and a paved width of 32 feet, which is exactly our local street standards. The applicant is proposing to extend Sixth Court northward into their site. However, private property to the east of the subject site, which is tax lot 4500, is not part of the proposed development and prevents the extension from maintaining a full 54-foot right-of-way width. Rather than creating an offset continuation of Southeast Sixth Court, the city is requiring that the extension be built out to the highest local street standard possible within the available right-of-way while maintaining the existing alignment of Sixth Court that's in the Thompson Woods subdivision. The applicant is proposing to do this by extending Sixth Court with a 45.69-foot right-of-way width, a 32-foot paved section, and 5-foot planter strips on the west, with a 5-foot sidewalk on the west as well. There will be curb on the east side in order to properly manage stormwater, but no street trees or sidewalks. The applicant is proposing to install 4 new streetlights throughout the subdivision, roughly spaced at 150-foot intervals. Traffic generation, the applicant submitted a trip generation analysis, which provides the anticipated number of daily trips, including morning and evening peak hour trips of the proposed development. The 14 single-family attached houses are anticipated to generate 57 daily weekday trips, including 2 morning peak hour trips and 7 evening peak hour trips. Due to the low volume of expected weekday daily trips, no new transportation facilities or mitigation measures will be required. Under utilities, the applicant has submitted a stormwater plan, a sanitary plan, water plan, and a stormwater report to illustrate the utility provision scheme that they're proposing. There is currently an 8-inch concrete sewer main in Southeast Maple Street and an 8-inch PVC sewer main in 6th Court. The applicant proposes to extend each of these mains into the development following the route of the extended streets and install new 4-inch laterals to serve each lot. The applicant has submitted a stormwater plan and stormwater report to illustrate the proposed stormwater management scheme. There is currently an existing 12-inch PVC storm main in 6th Court within the Thompson Woods subdivision. The applicant is proposing to extend this main and upsize 48 inches within the proposed northerly extension of 6th Court and downsize to 12 inches when it intersects with the proposed intersection with Maple Street. Several catch basins are proposed along the new street extensions for public stormwater collection. For private stormwater management, the applicant is proposing to establish a 10-foot stormwater easement in the rear of each lot, the northern edge of Lot 7, and centered on the property line between lots 3 and 4. The easement would allow for a 2-foot backyard infiltration trench to be installed to collect roof and foundation drainage via 4-inch stormwater laterals in each lot. The stormwater will be conveyed from the backlot trenches to the stormwater main via 6-inch overflow conveyance pipes. The existing storm main in 6th Court is routed to the Thompson Woods Stormwater Facility, which is owned and maintained by the Thompson Woods Homeowners Association. When the Thompson Woods subdivision was approved on November 10th, 2021, the street connection proposed in the current Maple Street subdivision was not anticipated because at the time, we thought it was going to develop as the Maple Street Cottages development. The city's TSP, which predates both of these developments as it's in 2016, and therefore the applicant did not consider upstream flows from the subject site because it was considered at the time to be all contained on site. There was no proposed through connection of Southeast 6th Court. Let's see. Since stormwater from the currently today proposed Maple Street subdivision will be routed to the Thompson Woods Storm Facility, the conditions of approval require that the applicant provide the following to the city. A, evidence of Thompson Woods HOA's acceptance of the increased amount of stormwater directed to its facility. B, a downstream analysis that fully complies with the Public Works design standards and concludes that the facility has the capacity to accommodate the additional storm from the applicant's proposed subdivision. And C, shared maintenance terms for the facility between the applicant and Thompson Woods Homeowners Association, if required by the HOA. If any of these conditions cannot be satisfied and or the applicant proposes to route stormwater elsewhere, the applicant shall submit an alternate stormwater management design in conformance with the Public Works design standards for review and approval by the city manager or the city engineer. There is currently an 8-inch PVC water main in Maple Street and an 8-inch C900 water main in 6th Court. The applicant proposes to extend each of these mains into the development following the route of the extended streets and install 1-inch laterals to serve each lot. Landscaping, screening, and street trees. The applicant is proposing to plant 9 autumn brilliant serviceberry street trees in the Maple Street frontage and 6 autumn brilliant serviceberry street trees along the 6th Court frontage. The species is on the city's approved street tree list and is placed in an appropriately sized planter, which I mentioned earlier is 4 feet. Public and private agencies, the City of Scappoose City Manager, Public Works Director, Police Chief, and Columbia County Building Official, Scappoose Rural Fire Protection District, Columbia River PUD, and Scappoose School District Superintendent have all been provided an opportunity to review and comment on the proposal. The city engineer's comments are incorporated throughout the report. The Columbia County Building Official provided a comment stating that they've reviewed the application and have no objection to its approval as submitted. The Columbia River PUD provided a comment stating that the design for street lighting must be approved by the city engineer prior to the PUD providing cost estimates. The Scappoose Public Works Director provided a referral comment similar to the Columbia County Building Official that they reviewed the application, have no objection to its approval, provided it meets the applicable criteria. Similarly, the Scappoose School District Superintendent provided a comment that they do not have objection to this application. For public noticing, notice of the application was mailed to property owners within 100 feet of the site on January 8th, 2026. They had until January 21st at 5 p.m. to submit comments. As of today, there have been 3 comments made by the public. The first comment, which is in your amended packet as Exhibit 12, is from Summer Howe, who stated concerns of the density proposed and its impacts on safety, livability, traffic, parking, and reduced open space. This comment also calls attention to the other active residential developments within the city at this time. Ms. Howe cites chapters 17.104, which is street trees, 17.150, land division subdivision, 17.154, street and utility improvement standards, and 17.164, procedures for limited land use decision-making, as grounds for leaving the subject site as an open space or considering a lower density alternative to townhomes. The applicant submitted a response to Ms. Howe's public comment, which you can find as Exhibit 15. This states that the property was annexed into city limits and zoned R4 in 2020 via the Maple Street Cottages land use decision. At that time, considerations were made for capacity of various public services, including streets and utilities, to serve the site, and that's if it were to develop at maximum R4 density. Now that it has been annexed and zoned, development only needs to conform to the applicable approval criteria as listed and demonstrated throughout the staff report. The applicant also notes that Chapter 17.104 requires developers to plant street trees within a built urban environment and does not call for the preservation of undeveloped land. Staff concurs with the applicant's rebuttal on this. 8 residents of the Thompson Woods subdivision co-signed a public comment, which is on Exhibit 13, objecting to the proposed extension and connection of Southeast 6th Court. The residents state concerns that this connection would increase traffic and noise in their neighborhood, as well as lower their property and resale values. The applicant submitted a response to the Thompson Woods residents' public comment, Exhibit 16, stating that the subdivision plat process allows a developer to make an internal connection between 2 dead-end streets that their site abuts. Another active example of this is the Huser Estates development over on JP West. It has a couple different openings where it abuts right away, and there's some internal connections being made within that. The applicant also cites improvements to emergency response, delivery services, and highway access as benefits to a more connected street network, which accumulate to an overall public good. Staff concurs with the applicant's rebuttal on this one. The third comment, the Davis, Cisco, and Hapola households co-signed a public comment critiquing the design of the proposed development, including the lack of a perimeter fence between the proposed extension of 6th Court and tax lot 4500, which is the Davis property to the east of the subject site. The comment cites Chapter 17.100, which is landscaping, screening, and fencing, and its application to developments in city limits, paired with the fact that the commenter's properties are outside city limits as rationale for requiring screening be erected between the properties for privacy. However, Chapter 17.100 does not regulate scenarios where incorporated properties develop adjacent uses to unincorporated properties. It instead regulates scenarios where differing uses or uses that would abut one another if not separated by the right-of-way. In this case, this is an existing residential use abutting a proposed residential development, so the requirements of Chapter 17.100 do not apply here. In their response to this comment, the applicant voluntarily offered to erect a fence as requested by this comment. Since the fence is now part of the applicant's proposal, it has been added as a recommended condition of approval. The Davis-Cisco-Hopala comment also addresses the fact that no sidewalks are proposed on the eastern side of Sixth Court extension and calls attention to Sixth Court being extended as a through connection, despite it not being proposed to connect to the Maple Street Cottage. Again, that's that 2020 approval for the same subject site in 2020. That approval has since expired. As discussed in the staff report findings to section 17.154.030, an offset continuation of Sixth Court is not feasible or good planning practice. Without an offset alignment, there is 45.69 feet in the right-of-way, which does not allow for sidewalks or street trees to be installed on the east side of Sixth Court. Additionally, sidewalks on the east side of Sixth Court would front tax lot 4500, which is not part of this development. Given the way our code works and that the abutting property owner takes responsibility for maintenance and liability of sidewalks, this would become the maintenance and responsibility of tax lot 4500, since they would be the adjacent property owner. Regarding the through connection of Sixth Court, it was not proposed or required as part of the Maple Street Cottages development because of the unique nature of cottage cluster development and the need for a shared parking lot. The Thompson Woods subdivision to the south also had not been conceived yet when the Maple Street Cottages was approved in 2020. Once the Thompson Woods subdivision and Southeast Sixth Court were built out, and the current proposal that you see here tonight to support townhouses were proposed, the circumstances had changed, and the continued connection and extension of Southeast Sixth Court with its existing alignment was deemed more appropriate option by city staff rather than not connecting. Although the TSP identifies conceptual future local street connections, this is not an exhaustive list, and the TSP also states that development review is the stage where specific alignments are best determined. As stated in the applicant's response to the Thompson Woods residents' comment, a more connected street network is preferred for emergency response, delivery services, and highway access. Finally, as required by the subdivision preliminary plat approval criteria contained within section 17.150.060 sub A sub 3, streets and roads within a subdivision are required to conform to plats of subdivision and partitions already approved on adjoining property as to the width and general direction. So what this means is that when you develop a subdivision, you have to consider what's around you. If you have a dead end street directly south, the logical conclusion is the continued extension of that street. So them doing that here meets the approval criteria that you have to consider other approvals in the past. For these reasons, the proposed extension of Southeast Sixth Court is approvable. Staff responses to these comments are included in what I just mentioned above in the staff report, as well as the applicant's responses that staff have concurred with and are now included as additional findings to support the approval of the application. So moving now to findings of fact, staff's findings related to Chapter 17.50, low density residential, that should be medium density residential, pages 9 and 10. 17.104, street trees, 10 through 12. Chapter 17.150, land division subdivision, pages 12 through 16. Chapter 17.154, street and utility improvement standards, pages 16 through 26. 17.162, 164, procedures for limited land use decision making, pages 26 and 27. And then lastly, ORS 197.195, limited land use decision, page 28. Based on the findings of fact and the materials submitted by the applicant, staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve SB 1-25, subject to the conditions of approval listed on 28 through 32, with the addition of condition 21 marked in the red text of your amended packet. As it's not yet in the record, I'll read condition 21 into the record. Condition 21 reads, the applicant shall install a site obscuring fence between the subject site and tax lot 4500. The height and material of this fence shall be approved by the city planner and city engineer according to section 17-100-090 sub E sub. At this time, I can take any questions you'd like to ask. And as a reminder of Chair Jensen's opening statement that we will not be hearing from the applicant tonight due to new state rules around limited land use meetings.
Thanks for letting us know about that change.
So I have a question about the stormwater and the HOA acceptance on Southeast Sixth Street. That acceptance hasn't, they haven't accepted that yet?
Correct. There's been some background discussion. There's been some background discussions on that. There's been some background discussions on that with the Thompson Woods HOA, but it's in here as a condition because that approval hasn't been finalized yet.
Then my understanding is if they don't get that acceptance, that they will come up with an alternative plan. Does that mean we would have to have more approval or?
No, no, the alternative plan would have to meet the Public Works design standards and all of the other applicable approval criteria, but it would be reviewed as part of the construction document engineering approval.
Curious, section 17.100.090 E3, how high does that site obscuring fence need to be?
5 foot minimum in the code.
I have a question. You can hear
Yes.
me? Okay. I'm assuming that the road connection from Maple to Sixth Court is in the TSP. I can't find that, but online. But is that's already was already previously planned out in that document?
Not exactly. So the TSP was finalized in 2016, and the Thompson Woods subdivision hadn't even been built at the time. So the condition around Sixth Court was just in a different situation. But the TSP also states that the local connections that they show, it's not an exhaustive list. You can plan these things and figure like what would make sense, but the TSP also states that development review is the real time where you figure out like what connections and street network makes the most sense when you're doing subdivisions and major partitions.
Okay, is the TSP being updated in the 50-year plan? I can't remember.
Not technically as part of the 50-year plan, but we're in the process. We have a grant. Lori got us a grant to get that updated. And so we're working on it right now.
Okay, thanks.
Does anybody have any more questions for staff?
I do.
Go ahead.
So I just have a question regarding the parking. There's a note here on page 44. Currently, the occupants on Sixth Court can park on both sides of that road. And I'm seeing a note here that the city is wrote about putting possibly no parking signs at the intersection. How will that affect the current owners there on Sixth? Because I know there's limited parking. They have driveways.
Mhm.
And then there's limited street parking. There's not a whole lot of street parking currently.
Chris, do you want to take that question?
This one's working. You hear me?
Thanks, Liz.
Let's try this one. Check. There was, I did hear from the HOA some time ago about parking issues at the intersection with Sixth Court near Elm Street on the west side of the street there. That was creating site distance issues kind of at the intersection. So as you pulled out and were going, to go westbound, it was, difficult to see around one or two, a few cars that might be parked there. And it's certainly something that, it's in our code that you have to park back from an intersection in accordance with our municipal code a certain distance based on the, based on the street. Generally, it's about 30 feet back from the tangent point of the, like PC of the curb, which is where the curvature stops, and then you have the tangent piece. We don't often stripe that or mark it as no parking because it's already stated that way in our code. But where we have issues that are persistent, we can. I suggested at the time that the HOA submit a traffic complaint through, it's actually on the police tab of our website, and you can get to a traffic complaint form and lodge a formal complaint that our traffic safety committee would review and consider and likely probably monitor a bit before they took some action there to either put a sign up or paint it, no parking. But that's a solution that we offered up.
Okay.
We haven't seen anything come in yet. So I would assume that issue went away perhaps. But does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to guess since there's no more questions for staff at the moment, we should feel free to discuss this amongst yourselves. Well, I'll say that, well, first, I really appreciate all the comments that were made. They were well made and you were applying criteria. Like, I've seen a lot of comments. You guys did it right. And just appreciate the participation in the process. I know you're not getting necessarily all of the responses from the staff responses that you would prefer. I hope that you can understand where those responses were coming from. And that's, it's based in the code. That, that we have to go by the code. We don't get to apply there's no judgment, does it meet the code, yes or no? That's the way it works with this kind of development. And I think the staff's done a good job of going through that in the staff report, making sure the criteria is very clear and how that is or isn't being met. So I just want to say again, thank you. This well done. Thank you for your flexibility in making a comment not about the application. This said, for us, I think that this does meet the criteria. And on that basis, which is the only basis we have, this should be approved. And I would entertain a motion.
Move that the planning commission approve SB 125 and adopt the findings as presented in the planning commission staff report originally dated January 2026 by staff.
Beautifully done. Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those
Aye.
opposed? Thank you. All right. So that is,
Willow.
Oh.
And with that, then we will be moving on to calendar check, which I know is incredibly exciting. You don't have to stay for it. If you want to ask questions of city staff, hang around. This won't actually take us that long and it probably won't bore you to tears. But if you want to discuss some of the questions that have been brought up in the comments, I'm sure that they'd be available. So on to calendar check. Let's see here. No other events scheduled for January. So we move on to February. February 2nd, City Council work session at 7, followed by City Council meeting. Work session at 6, followed by City Council at 7. No Planning Commission on the 12th. City offices will be closed for President's Day on Monday, the 16th. Tuesday, the 17th, there'll be a council work session at 6, followed by council meeting at 7, and no Planning Commission meeting on the 26th. That is the calendar check.
One thing I'd add, Chair, if I could,
Yes.
on February 7th, which is a Saturday around 9 o'clock, the council will be doing their annual goal setting retreat. And that'll be at Scampoose Middle School. So it is open to the public, but it's kind of the annual all day, vision for the city. It's the goals you see over there on that wall. That's their opportunity to do that annually.
What did you say? Time did you say?
9 o'clock a.m.
And that is a public meeting, but is there public involvement with that meeting?
No, not the way their typical meetings are.
Okay.
Excuse me, did you say the 26th was no planning commission meeting or
I believe that's what,
on the
yeah.
26th?
Oh, sorry. No,
Okay.
I just got excited, I guess.
Okay.
We do have a planning commission meeting on the
It's
26th?
possible. I'll get
Okay.
into that in a second, but it's possible.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner comments. I think I've pretty much made mine. Any other commissioner comments? Okay. Staff comments.
Thank you. So the last time we were all here in December, we were discussing the Elm Street annexation and partition. So you all recommended approval for that to the city council, and on Tuesday, the 20th, it got approved by council via ordinance. So that's moving forward. The development you'll start to see some sidewalks be installed and then some paving to tie in the existing street with the new sidewalk and curb. Under completeness review right now, and this was regarding the planning commission meeting we have coming up in the next month-ish, but we are reviewing the hotel project for completeness, the hotel going in on Wagner Court. We have sent them one round of completeness comments. They've sent us back a second draft of their application. We're taking a look at it right now. We haven't deemed it complete or not quite yet, but if we deem it complete, likely planning commission on March 12th, possibly February 26th. And then, yeah, a lot of building permit review for Dutch Canyon 4 out on Callahan. They're still building. They had some starts today, actually. So three new permits issued that are starting today and this month. And then 50-year plan, doing a lot of background work right now since that joint council planning commission work session. Our consultant team is working on, tying up our final studies and all the acreage and things like that. And then they're working on writing findings for the adoption, which we expect to begin locally in May or June, something like that. Chris?
If you want a little bit of a project update, you tag along to what NJ said, DC Force, all of the subdivision construction's done, so now they're just on houses. And it's clicking away at a pretty good pace. Huser is wrapping up their subdivision project up there off of Keys. And it's got Keys on the east and then JP West on the north. And all of the heavy infrastructure is done. They're doing franchise utilities right now and working out on Keys to get things wrapped up so they can pave Keys Road. They'll pave the interior roads later, probably late spring. We're reviewing the plat right now, so we should see some houses going up here in the next few months, hopefully this quarter sometime. Buxton, they're down the hill there on JP West. They're doing all their major infrastructure work with our city utilities. Most of the storm is in. Most of the sanitary is in. They're still kind of working on some of that right now. They'll start water heaters in about 2 weeks. All the site grading is done, of course. And yeah, we're just getting into the plat a little bit on that. I think they're getting ready to send that over for review. So we'll see that pretty soon. Casey House on the corner of JP West and First. They're working on that little site there doing parking lot improvements. They built a pond. They'll start the frontage improvements here fairly soon now that the trees are gone. Habitat for Humanity has a project between 3rd and 4th and Myrtle and Oak. That's in the southeast part of town. That property has been vacant for many, many years, so it's good to see that one going now. And they're just working on their curbs and sidewalks, things like that. All the utility work is done. We don't have a plan on when the actual homes would start. I'm going to do those on a different schedule. So Hopefully we'll see something this year on that. The city has their 3 million gallon reservoir project going up at Keys Treatment Plant. It's going really well. We're fairly close to schedule on that. They're going to be backfilling the reservoir here over the next few weeks. And there's some site utility work that has to happen to get the tank plumbed up so that it actually can deliver water to us. So they're working on that over the next 2 weeks or so. We also plan on doing waterline work on Keys Road from the reservoir down past Bonnie Lane and down the hill there. So that might be kind of disruptive. We'll try to get that wrapped up, the design wrapped up here over the next couple of weeks, and then get into construction on that for basically the summer. Let's see. Sewer treatment plant is still going strong with upgrades over there. Basically, they're redoing the entire plant. So the phase they're doing now is the headworks building, basically, and all of the city's sewage goes into that building and out of it. So it's a fairly major ordeal to build a new building and then bypass the flows and do all that stuff. So, but that's kind of where they're at on that. And then we have in the wings a couple of other projects in design. Northwest Waterline. We've been looking at the whole northwest part of town. That water system, that network up there is. We inherited it. It was an old like private, I guess semi-public water system when that was in the county. We inherited that back in the 60s. It's fairly old infrastructure. It's really undersized. So pretty much or a good chunk of that will be replaced with this project. So we'll be replacing water line on 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and E.J. Smith all the way up the hill to where it turns and heads north. So it's going to be fairly disruptive. That'll be exciting. And then finally, we've got some streets we want to do around Grant Watts and Otto Peterson. We've got a couple of good street improvement projects we're planning to do there. It sort of started out as a sidewalk project, and now it's street, storm, water, sewer, franchise utilities, lighting. It'll be fairly extensive. So,
And that's fuel tax revenue, right?
yeah, it'll be a combination of revenue sources. It'll be our fuel tax money. We'll cover a good chunk of it. We can use some street SDCs for it. So it's pretty well funded. We just need to get it kicked off in design. It'll probably take about a year to get the design done and get everybody happy with that. And then we'll move to construction, likely in 2027. So those are the highlights.
Okay. All right.
Lori, do you have anything you want to share?
Just briefly, you touched on the 50-year plan. So thanks for that. So the Transportation Growth Management Grant, which is for an update to our TSP, which stands for Transportation System Plan. We have been meeting with a few different consultants. The RFP has not been released yet, but we expect that TSP update will kick off sometime this fall. So fall to winter. Really, it takes a while, I guess, to get sort of through the contracting process with ODOT. So looking forward to that. At the point that kicks off, we'll be setting up a public advisory committee. So we would be looking for a representative from the Planning Commission at that point, but I'll bring that up again as we get a little bit closer. And then we did have our first kind of project management meeting for the St. Helens to Scappoose Trail project. So we held that meeting on December 19th, and that was really to meet the consultant and for the heads of the cities and the county to just kind of come together and get to know the project a little bit more. We will be putting together again a public advisory committee for that project. Scott, I have you down for that one. And They will be releasing sort of a informational sheet on that, Scott, which I'll send to you once I get that. In both of these, actually all the projects will have an opportunity for public involvement as well. So even if you're not on that committee, there will be some outreach projects so that we can get everyone's feedback. Other than that, welcome Willow to Planning Commission. Thanks for being there. And I think that's all I have tonight.
Okay, thank you. And with that, unless there's anything else, we can adjourn. Thanks, everybody.